Okay, we're back. I had a lot of people that asked for a quicker breakdown. A lot of people asked for recipes and this and that, and so I just wanted to go over the differences because, of course, we get a lot of people that say, oh, you know, that's not the way they used to do it in the old way and all that stuff. So I'll explain my process and why I use my process. And the difference between the new way and the old way. So what I did yesterday was I ground up all of the pork using a 10 millimeter grinding plate, and I added my kosher salt, and I added what we call a curing agent number 2. The curing agent number 2 is a sodium nitrate. The sodium nitrate basically inhibits botulism. So it's something good that you can put in the meat, and it enhances flavor, and it also keeps the meat nice and red. So in the olden days, they always fought on how to keep the Soppressata red, and they would continue to add paprika, paprika, paprika. And the more paprika they added, thinking it was going to turn it red, it actually turned it more brown. So I don't use any paprika in mine, but the sodium nitrate, the dosage is 1/4% of the meat weight. I do everything in grams because grams are a lot easier. When you pick up meat, you're not always using a 10-pound batch or a 12-pound batch, so it's easier to just say, okay, weigh the meat in grams. You know, if you have 3,000 grams or 8,000 grams, you multiply that times 2.5%, and you get your kosher salt weight of the required salt that's going to be needed in the meat, which is, for me, 2.5% sea salt. The sodium nitrate is added onto the sea salt, and the sodium nitrate is critical that you use a dosage of 0.25% of the meat weight. That's all you ever want to put in it. So grams are much more accurate because on this particular batch where we have 8,835 grams of meat, we're only talking about 22 grams of cure number 2. So, so what I did yesterday was I ground the meat, and I added the kosher salt, and I added the cure number 2. Those are the 2 key ingredients for curing meat. Everything else is a spice, and then we'll talk about starter cultures, which I'm going to add today. So as far as spices, I took 3 different bins and I divided them into equal batches of 8,835 grams per batch. That makes it a lot easier because once I distributed the meat at 8,835, 2.5% salt is the same grams here, so you can measure 1, 2, 3, and you're ready to go with your salt. And I got 3 different cups of salt and 3 different cups of starter culture. And then in this one, I added a red pepper flake and black whole peppercorns. And I have percentages on that if you guys want to know that. East Coast guys and some of the Calabres use what we call pepper paste. So I made an 8,835 gram batch of sweet pepper paste, and I also made an 8,835 gram batch of hot pepper paste. The sweet and the hot pepper paste doesn't have, in these batches that I'm making today, does not have any black whole peppercorns in it. It's strictly a red pepper paste. Then what I did was you let the myosin release from the meat. You grind this and you mix it really well, and you put them in the refrigerator. You saran wrap them. When you refrigerate them overnight, the myosin releases from the meat, and it makes the meat much stickier. And the reason why you do that is it creates a much better bind when you stuff them into the casing. It gets them to stick, so it creates less potential air pockets. And then when you press them, whatever air pockets you have in there after you poke the casing, Once after about a week, when you press them, hopefully whatever little air pockets you have in there, the pressing helps in getting rid of some of those other little air pockets if you have any in there. But a lot of times you'll, even though the Soppressata stays in one piece, if you look at it real closely, you'll see that sometimes there's some separation in the meat between fat and meat, and and that's what we call, the bind is not quite as good. Whereas if you make the meat a little stickier by releasing the myosin overnight, it creates kind of that glue, and you get a much smoother rendition on the meat whatsoever so far. So let's talk about the old way. The old way, then, they would add wine, which you could add wine if you'd like to. And wine, we are going to use a 2001 Sangiovese wine, and I use 1.6%. Again, when I say 1.6%, it's 1.6% by weight of the grams of meat. So when we're talking wine, we're talking about 141 grams of wine, not cups, not ounces, not by volume. Everything is by weight. There is a certain amount of sugars, believe it or not, or carbohydrates in meat. Even though everybody thinks that it's just a protein, there is a certain amount of carbohydrates and sugar in meat. So when you hang these and you ferment them, and you're relying on the bacteria in the air to ferment your product, this is the old way that it was done. It would rely on the sugars in the meat, and the bacteria would feed on the sugars, and when the bacteria feeds on the sugars, it releases lactic acid. When it releases lactic acid in the meat, that's what drops your pH down. The pH, bringing the pH down, is critical to having a safer environment for any other bacteria that could attack the meat, because there are certain bacteria out there that cannot live under a pH of 5.1. This is one of the main reasons why you use vinegar when you can vegetables. Okay, the vinegar, what it does is it drops that pH down to a safer level. So in the old days, they would rely on the sugar of the meat and whatever bacteria is in the air at that time when it's fermenting. The issue that you have there is that you don't really know what bacteria from one time that you've made the meat versus another time, which bacteria is actually feeding on the sugars in the meat. And one bacteria will win. That might be a good one, that might be a bad one. So what we do now is I add what we call a starter culture. And there's a lot of different manufacturers that make starter cultures, and starter cultures, there's different cultures out there based on the flavor it will put out. The benefit of the starter culture is you are feeding it a known good bacteria, and then you are giving it about 0.3% dextrose, which is a sugar. The benefit of doing it this way is we know that 0.3% is about the proper value where the starter culture will continue to eat the sugar until there is none left. If you put too much dextrose in the meat, the pH would continue to drop. And when you do that, the issue you run into is if the pH gets below 4.9 or 4.8, you end up with a very sour or tangy meat, which some people like sour and tangy, but we're trying to create the old way but safer. So 0.3% is just enough sugar where you can take the pH of the pork, which probably started out at about 5.8 or 5.9, and over the fermentation process until the dextrose gets eaten completely, okay, this should drop the pH to about 5.3, 5.1 to 5.3. At that point, the pH won't drop anymore. The culture has nothing more to feed on. And 5.1 to 5.3 is exactly where we want to be for the safer side of that pH value. And then when the starter culture we use is a powder, and you keep it in the freezer, and it's by weight, and so we're talking about literally 2 grams of powdered starter culture here, and then I mix it with about no more than a 1/4 cup of distilled water at room temperature, and you want this to mix. You want to just basically inoculate that culture the same way as you do yeast. You're activating this right now. And then so after we mixed this and put this in the refrigerator last night, I did not add any of the starter culture or the dextrose in here yet, because I want that transaction to start working after I'm done stuffing it, and not start working when it's in the refrigerator last night. Secondly, depending on what starter culture you use, they work better in certain temperatures. So this starter culture works great at about 69 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I will take this meat after we case it, and I will hang it at 69 to 70 degrees and monitor the pH until the pH drops to 5.1 or 5.3. Being that I've done it numerous times, that process won't take any more than 30 to 36 hours with this particular starter culture, because this is a fast-acting, fast-fermenting starter culture. Once I get that pH to 5.1, that's when I transfer them over to my chamber, and then the rest of the drying process is done at 48 to 50 degrees at 75% humidity, until the total weight of the meat loses at least 35%. Once you've gone, you use the curing agent, which helped on the reducing the risk of botulism, and then you've also added the known good starter culture, which starts your bacteria, the good bacteria, which is now predictable every time you make it, because you're always using that same bacteria. So your flavor is not going to change unless you change the spices. That's the starter culture that you're always going to get. The dextrose, and we're going to add 1.6% wine, and we're going to case it, and we're ready to go. So I have my mixing box back out, and here is the meat, and you'll see just due to the oxidation in the refrigerator last night, that the top section was kind of grayed out, which is very common, and underneath is getting very, very red. So I'm going to put this all into, and yes, I did wash my hands thoroughly with soap and water before I started this, and the whole table is completely sanitized. So I use 1 cap of bleach per 1 gallon of water in a spritzer bottle. And so once the tables and everything are soaked down and washed down, then I will spritz the tables with a 1 cap of bleach to 1 gallon of water, and that's what a lot of butchers use when you see them in the store. I'm going to move a couple of these bins out of the way. It's 58 pounds of meat. So we're going to start up the mixer. And today, now being that all of the other spices, ingredients that were put in here from last night, the only thing we're adding into each one now is the starter culture, the dextrose, that'll start activating the fermentation process, and 1.6% wine in each one of these 3 batches. Okay, that was the starter culture with the distilled water. Here's the dextrose. 1.6% wine. And you can see by adding the liquid now, all that stickiness that I had, it's going back more to a sticky mush. So that's this batch. This is the whole peppercorn one. I'll pull the camera off and show you the mixer. Hold that up. Okay. Want some? Okay, so this batch is mixed. I'm going to pull this out. And being that I have the box dirty, I'm going to do the same thing with the other two batches, and then I can get the box out of the way. So I got a phone call about a week ago from a guy who wanted to know where I was located. And I told him where I was located, and I find out that that he lives about 45 minutes from me, and he's known as Frank the Sodfather Balestri. And so everybody knows him as the Sodfather, as in like super sad, because you know damn well that every Italian is lazy, and we call calamar and ricotta and mortadella and gabagool, and everybody forgets the rest of the word. So in short, people call it super sad. So he's known as the Sodfather. So that's how he got his name. And he used to shoot videos. I haven't seen too many videos of him lately. And for a long time, he was a believer of the old way. He hangs in a cold environment, which can only be done during certain seasons, obviously, because you need to control that temperature. He is using a cure number 2 now, because he says, hey, why not? It reduces the risk of botulism. Why not put that in? So I believe that he does not use a starter culture. I think he uses natural, which is fine. I mean, people have had a lot of success for many years doing it that way. So what's really cool about it is we talked on the phone for almost 45 minutes the first time, and it's funny because it almost sounded like we knew each other for 30 years. I mean, memories go back in the family, and they're all both very similar. So he turned me on to, I told him one of the issues I was having, and he turned me on to taking the kosher sea salt and grinding it down to almost a powder, which allows the salt to mix better in the meat instead of a chunkier sea salt. So this batch, I decided that I am going to take the sea salt and run it through a blender, and when I got done, it was literally like talcum powder, and so I'm assuming that it probably mixed really well. We also started talking about casings, and he told me that he had some guys in Canada that turned him on to these casings, and I said, oh, you mean the collagen casings? He says, no, they're not collagen, because I tried the collagens and they work good. You can pack them really tight, but the one thing I noticed with the collagen casing, which is not a natural casing, is it doesn't always shrink to the meat that well. So sometimes you end up with air pockets. When it does shrink, it also creates a shrivel on the outer of the casing, which almost makes it look like a pepperoni, which kind of turned me off because, you know, it just doesn't look the same. So he turned me on to what they call these air-dried casings. Let's see what this is here. Is that one labeled? on the blue tape?
Mild.
Mild. Okay, bring that one over here. We'll do that one next. Okay. Let me get this one out of the way for now. So he turned me on to these casings, which are what they call air dried. They're 60 millimeters. Well, the one I'm using is a 60 millimeter. They come in a bunch of different sizes. It is a natural casing, which is kind of cool. I'm like, wow, this could make life a lot easier because, as you know, beef middles are a mess and not fun to deal with, and washing them and all that other stuff. So, this is the pepper paste. Wow, it's red. Shal, if you want to grab one of those casings, I'll show you what they look like. So I ordered like 150 of them, and I'm really hoping that they work. And he swears by them, and so again, Frank the Sodfather Balestri. So it's pretty cool, and it's funny that he knows some of the same people I do, because we're into this stuff and we just enjoy doing it. So this is the casing. There it is. It's dried. I know. Looks like a tube sock, whatever you want to call it. Looks like other things, whatever. But you soak these in cold water for 5 minutes. That's it. It's already sealed on the bottom. And you fill these things up. You can twist them much tighter on the top, and I'm going to try to use the clipping machine on these. I did have a problem with the clipping machine with the natural casings, because the beef middles are very thick and the staples are not big enough, and sometimes when the staple goes down, it plunges through the beef middle, and then you end up with a poke into the beef middle instead of the clip going around the casing. What's nice about these is he said you can twist them, and the more you twist them, they'll get tighter, and it'll push the meat tighter into the casing, and the more you twist them, the twist gets tighter, and I'm hoping that the staples or the clips will work on the end of these. So I'm looking forward to trying them. Again, he said they're great, so he offered to come out and help. I said, that's all right, it's not that big of a deal, you know. So, but I did want to put a shout out to him, because so far he's been a real cool guy.
Full of
Yep, we're all full with staples and we're recording. So I got my helper this time, because last time was a disaster. So it's a lot easier with two people. So she took half of this one batch, which was, let's see, roughly 19 pounds, so about half of it, 9.5 pounds. Filled it in the stuffer, and we'll put this aside for right now. And I took these casings now. Here's the casings. There's the casings, and they're just in cold water for 5 minutes. That's it. They're no smell, no lemons, no washing. Bada bing. That's it. Okay. Still keep a tray out, because you still have some moisture, but it looks like it might work. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a scissors. We're going to try this and see how well it works. And we're going to create this loop like so. Like that. And my attempt is we're going to stuff these, and when we put the staple in it, I'm going to try to staple the loop in with it, and it's going to be ready to go. And if this works, this is awesome. So we're going to take this for now, and we're going to crank this down to get the meat out to the stuff, to the end of the funnel. And we are there and ready to go. You ready to go? Okay, so let's see what happens here. This here goes like this. This goes like this. A lot easier. Okay, go ahead. And I'm going to pack them real tight. Go ahead. And we know that these are going to be fairly long. So my goal is we'll keep it a little short for right now.
That's it?
Yeah, I think that's good. You can go a little more. Okay, good. Alright, so they're fairly long, and we're going to keep them fairly long. And the reason why we're going to keep them long is because after they're done, then I'll cut them in half. And like I said, this is a first time out, so it's possible that this is a learning curve. Maybe I made it a little too long, huh?
No,
Get a grab on it?
Yeah, I think so.
So we'll take some meat out temporarily. Take some meat out. Like so. We'll give it a good twist like this maybe. And we'll see if this will work. And if we go down,
Here's your string.
put it, grab me like 2 or 3 pieces of, yeah, put it down here. Go like this, and go like this. And I'm going to attempt to put the loop in at the same time. Go ahead, give it a shot. Down?
Doesn't feel like it went all the way, but.
It did.
Okay.
What do you think?
Looks pretty good, though it looks like it's pulling kind of a lot.
Huh?
See how it pulls?
Yeah.
When the casing dries, will it?
Should shrink with it. All right, let's leave that one like that. And let's try one differently, okay? But if that works, that's awesome, because then you could do everything at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, give it a shot. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. A little more. A little more. Oh, where the end of the funnel is. Push too hard. Okay. That's good. See if this works any better. Ready? Want to tie this?
Oh, jeez.
No, tie it.
Oh, tie it.
Yeah, put a knot on it. Go down. Yep, good. Tie it. Is that tight?
Well, my tight.
Okay. Okay.
And no this?
I don't think so. What do you think?
I think so too.
Huh?
I think so too.
Yeah. You know what? It might take a little more time.
Hard on
But
your hands with those strings.
yeah, I know.
You almost need like thimbles on your fingers. Like pencil.
All right. Does that look any different?
Totally.
Huh?
Totally.
All right. So
With
this
no
is
pull.
this is getting a better bind this way than the other way. So
Show 'em.
I think that's the way we're going to do it. This has a little more of a taper, and I don't know if we're actually getting air up in here. So I think we're just going to do it with the ties.
Now I only have this much left.
Yeah, I know. These things are
So,
going fast.
Refill or no?
No, I think we'll make it, right? The casings work well, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Less mess,
Less mess,
no smell.
no smell. So that's the whole process. There we go. So we'll do the rest of these. It looks like we're going to get, these are monsters, but like I said, they're 16 inches long, so we'll probably get maybe, we'll cut them in half after they're cured and vacuum pack them. So for every one of those, we're actually getting 2 pieces out of it. So that's about it. We're going to cut the video. These will get hung at 70 degrees at 90% humidity for 30 to 36 hours until the pH drops to 5.3, and then we'll transfer them into the chamber. When I'm done here, I will shoot a small clip of the chamber and show you what's going on in there also. So that should do it. If you like these videos, make sure you press the like button, and also subscribe. Any other requests, just let me know, and maybe we'll do another video based on request. We did a fresh Italian sausage last week because somebody wanted to know how to make a fresh Italian sausage. Same process, different ingredients, less salt, whatever it is, but it's fun making videos, right?
Sure.
Sure, she loves it. So, so that's it. Make sure you hit that like button and press the subscribe button. And also, again, big shout out to Frank Balestri, Frank the Sod Father Balestri, for guiding me through using these casings. If they shrink like he claims they will, this is definitely a go. They cost a little more to do, but man, it definitely makes the whole process a lot easier. So as much as we think this is fun and easy, it's actually more fun and easy to eat them than it is to make them. So we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you. All right, so this is what ended up happening. We got, I didn't even bother counting them. I don't know, maybe 25, 27 pieces. You guys can count them. You can pause the video and count them if you want. But 25, 27 pieces, somewhere around there, totaling 58 pounds. So when we press these, and then we're going to let them dry, and then when we're ready to vacuum pack them, when we're done, we will cut them in half and vacuum pack them in halves, because they're pretty large. Just to give you an idea, there you go. So they're pretty good size. If we cut these in half, that's going to make a real nice size to pack. So out of the 27 pieces that we stuffed, we're going to end up with 54 pieces, which worked out great. So that's about it. I definitely wanted to show you the chamber, so I'll unplug and move this also. Let's see if we can show you the chamber. So right now, don't have a lot in the chamber, but we'll have 58 pounds in there. So right now, we're showing that we're at 49.4 degrees on the temperature. When that gets to 51 degrees, the refrigerator will kick on and bring it back to 47. So at any given time, the refrigerator stays between 47 and 51 degrees. And then right now this is showing 57% humidity, and that's obviously because the refrigerator must have kicked on, which dehumidifies, and that will creep up. That normally holds about 75% humidity, but for the first 5 minutes after the compressor kicks on, that humidification really drops fast. But once we start getting this meat in there, the meat will definitely be bringing that humidity up also. So here we go. In here, there's a double. It's a double refrigerator. It's 42 cubic feet. It's on the inside. It's roughly 5 feet high. I have a humidifier down here, and oh, that's why we're down in humidity, because I need to replace my humidifier water. And then there's a dehumidifier here in case if the humidity gets too high, that will kick on. This is a loin that's been curing since September 14th. So this is a ways to go. This will be probably at least another 3 to 4 months. This is going to be a killer piece of meat. And then this is a fiocco, which is 1/2 of the prosciutto. It's a very small piece. But this is going to be, again, this was done on 914 also, with a little black pepper, coarse black pepper and red pepper flakes, and then coated and wrapped in a beef bung. So that's these two pieces. I made a huge pork belly, and I took 1/3 of the pork belly and created a pancetta stesa, which is pancetta that's hung. It's not rolled like your typical pancetta, and this can be hung and dried. It's already cured, and you can cut slices off of it anytime. Makes great flavor for carbonara or whatever. Carbonara, most people say use guanciale, but the pancetta works actually really, really good. So we're gonna hang the other Soppressatas in a different box at 70 degrees for the next 30 hours. And there we go. I don't know what happened with my white balance, but obviously something got confused here because the picture's a little yellow. But all right, well, at any rate, you've seen them. There we go. There's the hot ones. So they're going to be pretty red in 2 or 3 days, and then we'll in about 4 or 5 days we'll start pressing them, and then we'll hang them in the other chamber at 47 to 51 degrees. See you guys later.